Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to crochet this hood with a turtleneck. This is what the front looks like and this is from the side. Let me unfold everything so you can see the structure. So basically we have a tube like this, but it was worked flat. And then we work on top of these rows. We work back and forth in rows for the hood. This is worked flat as well. After I finish all the rows, I sewed the top together like that. And it looks like this. So the structure is super simple. Another good thing about this pattern is that you can use a yarn of a different thickness, so it doesn't have to be 8 ply. You can use 5 ply or 10 ply. You just need to follow the measurement I'm going to give you in the video. So let's get started. By the way, I started streaming on Twitch at Cherilyn. I do crochet, games, or just chatting. If you want to connect with me personally, don't be afraid to drop me a follow there. So this is the yarn I used. It is an 8 ply yarn, 100% acrylic. I used one ball and this is the second ball, and this is what I have left. So a little bit more than one ball. This yarn calls for a 4mm crochet hook, and that's what I'll be using. So we are going to start from the bottom, which is a turtleneck here. I'm going to make a slip knot. Insert my hook. We're going to make a chain. The chain will be this length. So, to make a chain, yarn over and pull it through the loop on the hook. That's chain 1. Yarn over again, pull it through the loop on the hook. Chain 2. Chain 3. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you're going to chain about 9 inches, which is about 23 centimeters. For me, with this yarn to reach that length, I need to chain 36 chains. So if your yarn has a different thickness, you're going to follow the length, not the chain number. So you're going to make your chain until it measures 9 inches. It doesn't necessarily have to be 36 chains like mine. But with this specific yarn, I'll need to chain 36 to reach 9 inches. So this is chain 36. After that, I'm going to work single crochets along this chain in the opposite direction. At the beginning of each single crochet row, we're going to chain 1 as a turning chain. That does not count as a stitch. In this chain, which is now the second chain from the hook, that's the turning one, 1, 2. In that one, we're going to work a single crochet. So usually you would insert in that loop, but if you do that, this edge, this is the beginning chain. If you do that, after you work the single crochets in the chains, your edge will not look like this. It would look thinner. But if we insert in the back bump, which I'm going to show you next, your edge will be like this. It will have the same thickness as this fabric here. So instead of working in that loop of the second chain, we're going to turn our work, and you see there's a back bump there. So again, instead of inserting here, we turn, and there's a back bump right there. That one. So insert in that back bump, yarn over, pull yarn through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through both. So again, that's the front of the chain, turn, those are the bumps at the back. Now you may want to mark this first stitch, so you just place a stitch marker in the top 2 loops, like that. And then from here, we're just going to work 1 single crochet in the back bump of each chain. So find the next bump, that's the one we just worked into, that's the next one. Insert in that back bump of the next chain, yarn over, pull yarn through, yarn over, pull through 2. That's another single crochet. Continue doing that. Next back bump, insert hook, pull yarn up, yarn over, pull through 2, a single crochet, back bump, insert hook, a single crochet. So you're just going to continue doing this. Work 1 single crochet in the back bump of each stitch all the way to the end of the row. Your stitch number for this row should be the same as your beginning chain number. So for me, I have 36 chains. I should have 36 stitches for this row. So you work all the way to the end of the row. Don't forget the last bump. So work a single crochet in there. And then you want to double check your stitch number. You don't want to miss any stitch. So if you don't have your stitch number of this row the same as your beginning chain number, then you did something wrong. Very likely if you have like 1 or 2 stitches less, you might be missing some of the back bumps, maybe at the beginning or maybe at the end of the row. So make sure you have the same stitch number as your beginning chain number. Now we're going to begin row 2. Row 2, chain 1 and turn. Like I said before, whenever you want to begin a row, chain 1 and turn. So that's the turning chain. That does not count as a stitch. That is the first stitch. From this row, we're going to work in the back loop of each stitch. So as you can see, we have 2 top loops here. We're only going to insert in the back loop. The back one is the one that's further away from you. So that one. Insert in that stitch, make a single crochet, so yarn over, pull yarn through, and yarn over, pull through 2. And remember to mark the very first stitch of each row. So place your stitch marker there in the top 2 loops, and then move on to the next stitch, insert in the back loop. We're always going to insert in the back loop. So back loop, make a single crochet, and then from here you're just gonna work 1 single crochet in the back loop of each stitch. Okay, when you reach the end of the row, you're gonna find the marked stitch because that's the stitch we're going to work the very last single crochet into. So as you can see, that stitch is marked. That's the top 2 loops. We're only going to insert in the back loop and then make a single crochet. And that is row 2. Again, make sure you have the same stitch number. So for me, I should again have 36 stitches. If you're missing stitches, make sure you mark the very first stitch of each row every time you finish it, because that's going to help you find the beginning and the end of the row so you don't miss any stitches. So that was row 2. From here, we're just going to repeat row 2. Now we're working on row 3. What did we do for row 2? We chain 1 at the beginning of the row and then turn. In the very first stitch, that's the chain 1, right? That's the very first stitch. Insert your hook in the back loop and then make a single crochet. Now I'm gonna take out this one because we've already worked a stitch in that loop, so I don't need to mark this stitch anymore. I will take it out and then mark this stitch, the very first stitch again. And then from the next stitch, I'm just gonna work one single crochet in the back loop of each stitch, just like row 2. So I'm gonna work to the end of the row, find the marked stitch. That is the last stitch you should work your single crochet into. So one single crochet there, last stitch which is marked, one single crochet there in the back loop, and then that is row 3. So you're just going to continue repeating row 2 back and forth until you have something like this. So this is actually this. So you just continue working your row back and forth like that to make up this turtleneck. So I kept working like that until this is long enough to wrap around my neck and these two ends meet at the back of my neck. I like round numbers, so I stopped at row 70. By the way, if you don't know how to count your rows, each bump is 2 rows. So up, down, that's 2 rows. Up, down, 4, 6, 8, 10. And this measures 15 inches, which is about 38 centimeters. So this actually wraps around my neck snug, but that's okay because this stitch is very stretchy. So this is a turtleneck part. Now I'm going to work back and forth like that for the hood part. So the first row I will work along this edge, and I'm going to work one single crochet for each single crochet row. I honestly haven't decided what stitch to use for the hood, but the very first stitch is going to be single crochet because that is going to be very easy to work along this edge. So row 1, I'm going to be working one single crochet on the edge of each single crochet row. So each bump is 2 rows. After the last stitch of this row, I'm going to chain 1 and work one single crochet here. That's for the first row. I mark the stitch. It'll make it easier for me to count my stitches later. The second stitch I worked in here, in this one loop. This stitch is for the second row. So 2 single crochets for 2 rows. And then I just continue doing that. Work one single crochet for each row, and because I have 70 rows for the turtleneck, I should have 70 single crochets for this row. When I'm near the end of the row, it seems like I have 2 rows left, but just to double check, I'm going to count my stitches from the very first stitch that is marked. So here I have 68 stitches, which means I didn't make any mistake. Now I just need to make 2 more single crochets. So one in there, and one in this bump here. By the way, if you noticed, this row is wider than this part here. It's normal. So from here, I'm going to work my hood back and forth like that. And each row I'm going to increase. For the hood, I've decided to use double crochet. So from the next row, I'm going to start working double crochet rows. At the end of each row, you're going to turn your work. Usually you would chain 2 at the beginning of a double crochet row, but I make my first double crochet differently. It's better than a chain two. A chain two will leave a hole here between the first double crochet stitch and the second one, but the way I'm making it, the first stitch is gonna look just like a normal double crochet. Also, another thing, from this row we're going to work in the back loop only. So for each stitch you would have two top loops. The back loop is the one that's further away from you. So the first stitch we're going to work in the back loop. Insert your hook, that's the first stitch. Insert your hook in the back loop and make a single crochet. So you yarn over and pull it through one loop. You have two loops on your hook, and then yarn over, pull through two. Then you have two vertical loops. You're going to make another single crochet in the very first loop. So insert your hook in it. Make a single crochet, so you yarn over, pull yarn through. Now you have two loops, yarn over, pull through two. So that is the very first double crochet. It looks very similar to a regular double crochet. You're probably new to this stitch, so I suggest you mark that stitch. You just place a stitch marker in the top two loops. So here is another thing. We need to increase here at the edge. If we don't increase, this edge is going to go straight up like that. But we want it to be in that shape. We wanted to do that, so we need to increase. And the increase is done in the very first stitch and at the end of the row in the very last stitch as well. So in the very first stitch, I'm going to work another double crochet. To work a normal double crochet, yarn over, insert your hook in the same back loop, yarn over, pull yarn up, yarn over, pull through two, yarn over, pull through two. And then from the next stitch, the second stitch, I just worked one double crochet in the back loop of each stitch. So yarn over, insert hook in the back loop, yarn over, pull yarn up, yarn over, pull through two, yarn over, pull through two. Continue working like that to the end of the row. The last stitch is the stitch that's marked. In the very last stitch, we're going to work two double crochets. So when you finish one double crochet, work another one in the same stitch. Both of them in the back loop. So not counting the first single crochet row, that's the first double crochet row. The second double crochet row, we're going to turn our work, and then we're going to repeat this row. So two double crochets in the first stitch, and the very first double crochet is the special one. So insert your hook in the back loop only of the very first stitch, yarn over, pull it up, yarn over, pull through two. And then in the left vertical loop, insert your hook and make another single crochet, yarn over, pull yarn through one loop, yarn over, pull through two. Don't forget to mark the stitch again. This is the very first stitch. we're going to continue increasing, so a normal double crochet in the same stitch, so that we have 2 double crochets in the very first stitch. And then from the second stitch, work 1 double crochet in the back loop of each stitch. So at the end of the row, you do the same thing. Work 2 double crochets in the very last stitch, which is marked. So from here, I'm just going to continue repeating this one row and keep increasing in the very first stitch and the very last stitch. So in the first stitch, 2 double crochets, in the last stitch, 2 double crochets. The rest of the stitches, just 1 double crochet in each stitch, and every stitch we're working in the back loop of the row before, and the very first double crochet is always the special one. So I'll continue working back and forth, increasing like that. There is a point after so many rows we will stop increasing and just work straight up. But I'm gonna work a number of rows first and then come back and let you know where to stop. So I stopped when this length is about 25 inches. So this length would be wrapping around my head, and the edge will be folded over like this around my face. And if you're curious about my row count, it is 11 rows. So from the next row, I'm going to stop increasing, which means in the very first stitch and the very last stitch, I'm not going to work 2 double crochets anymore. I'm just going to work 1 double crochet in each stitch. But you make the very first double crochet as usual, which is a special double crochet. So that's 1 double crochet in the very first stitch. And then I'm just gonna move on to the second stitch back loop, work a normal double crochet, and then from there 1 double crochet in the back loop of each stitch all the way to the end of the row. By the way, I still encourage you to keep marking the very first double crochet. But yeah, you work 1 double crochet in each stitch, all in the back loop. Work, this is not marked, but work 1 last double crochet in the very last stitch, which is this one. This is the very last stitch. So 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet in the back loop of this very last stitch, and then you turn your work, start working the next row again, and the next row is the same as this one. So you start with 1 double crochet in the very first stitch, 1 double crochet in each stitch. So you're just going to continue working back and forth like that. No increase here or here, 1 double crochet in each stitch. I'll see you back here when I've worked enough rows. So I actually have done 10 plain rows here, but I kind of need to do something else before I can actually suss out how many plain rows I need to do in total. So the thing we need to do is this. This is the turtleneck. We need to sew it together like that, so that I can put it on and see the length of the hood if it's enough. Okay, so to do this, you can use the other end of the yarn tail. I don't have much yarn left, or you can use a new ball of yarn, but you're going to find a tail like this. You're going to make a slip knot again. and then we're going to slip stitch the first row and the last row together like that. So if we do it from this side is gonna be the wrong side. You'll see later. But first of all, we're going to find the very first stitch, insert your hook in both loops, and then on this edge in the very first stitch, we only insert in the back loop like that, and then put this on your hook and pull it through all the loops on the hook, and then chain 1. And then we're going to move on to the next stitch. On this side, we're always going to insert in both loops, and on this edge, always in the back one. So make sure you find the next stitch, which is that one. Insert in the back loop only, yarn over, pull yarn through all the loops on your hook. So that's a slip stitch. So this is what we're going to do to slip stitch these stitches of the two edges together. Next stitch, both loops, next stitch on this edge, back loop only, yarn over, slip stitch. So continue doing this to the end of the row. So now I have 2 stitches left. I'm going to do the same thing. When I finish the very last stitch, back loop there, slip stitch, I'm going to chain 1, cut this yarn and pull it through. And the other side looks like this. That is the seam. So that's the wrong side of the seam. I'm going to do this. Just fold it once like that. Turn it upside down. And that is going to be the turtleneck. And this is going to be the right side of the hood. So we're going to be wearing it like this. And now I can put this on around my neck and see how many more rows I need to make for these two to meet up on the top of my head like that. So I ended up doing 15 plain rows, starting from this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the whole thing from here to here measures 14.5 inches, which is 37 centimeters. So you're just going to work your plain rows like that until this is about 14.5 inches. And then you're going to put it like this. We're going to sew the 2 edges up like that. That's the top of the hood. So the reason why we sew it up from this side is because this is the wrong side. And when we wear it, it's going to be like that. That's the right side, see? And we're going to sew things up from the wrong side. By the way, I did start using a second ball of yarn for the past 2 or 3 rows. If you don't know how to join 2 yarn tails together, I have a shorts video right here. So we're going to start from this edge. We're going to sew these up all the way to the end. So that is the first stitch of the last row. I'm going to take out my hook like that. Now from this edge, find the very first stitch. This stitch of yours should be marked. Here I'm just going to do the same thing as I did here for this seam. So for this edge, I'm going to insert in the first stitch, but I'm only going to insert in the front loop. For this edge, insert in the first stitch as well, which is that one. Insert in both loops. And then I have a loop here. I'm going to put this loop on my hook and pull that loop through these two. And then I'll chain one. And then I do the same thing in the next stitch. Next stitch, front loop only. Next stitch on this side here. Both loops. Yarn over and make a slip stitch. Front loop, both loops, slip stitch. So I'm going to continue doing that until I get to the end of the row. Make sure the stitches match up. I'll see you here. Okay, this is near the end. I'm going to continue working. I'll need to see how many stitches I have here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I can work 2 more slip stitches, one front, one both loops. The last one you can actually just leave it there, but if you want to, you can work it as well. But yeah, it doesn't really matter, you won't be able to see this from the other side. So finish your last slip stitch, chain one, cut the yarn and pull through. And that's it. Now you can use a yarn needle and just weave in these yarn tails. So for example, these two, I'm going to weave them in on the wrong side of the turtleneck. So this side, so you just weave them in back and forth like this. After you do that, you can cut this pretty short. Do the same for all the other yarn tails as well. This one you can actually leave it like that because this is the wrong side. So you just flip it over like that. And that's it.